The table starts off with a standard turn 1, with Extra playing a Prairie Stream tapped, Sam playing a Foreboding Ruins tapped, John playing Breeding Pool, also tapped, and Tom playing a Snow-Covered Mountain. Extra is the first to take part in the actual gameplay, as he plays a Sunpetal Grove for turn, then taps 2 for 3 visits, to get a Spotarus headquarters onto the battlefield. Sam plays a mountain, and casts Goblin Bombardment before passing to John. John plays a command tower for turn, then plays the adventure part of Beanstalk Worm, letting him play an additional land this turn, for which John chooses Training Center. He passes to Tom. Tom plays another snow-covered mountain, then taps 2 for Runaway Steamkin. He moves it back to Extra. Extra plays a Plains, and casts his commander, Brenard, Ginger Sculptor. With nothing else for the moment, he passes to Sam. Sam plays a Blightstep halfway for turn, then casts Bontu's Monument, discounting his black creature spells by 1. John plays a Rootbound Crag for turn, followed by a Storyteller Pixie, before passing to Tom. Tom's only play is the 3rd Snow Mountain, and the turn moves back to Extra. Extra starts his turn with a Plains, then he cultivates, getting 2 forests. He casts Welcome to Sweet Tooth, making a 1/1 human thanks to its first ability. He attacks Sam with Bernard, and with no blocks declared, passes to Sam afterward. Sam plays a Talisman of Indulgence, then taps it for a colored mana, taking 1 damage, in order to cast his commander, Totentanz, Swarm Piper. Bontu's Monument triggers, and drains Sam's opponents for 1. Sam then passes the turn. On his turn, John just plays an Exotic Orchard before passing. Tom plays Snow-Covered Mountain number 4, then casts his own commander, Imodane, the Pyrohammer, with Steamkin getting a 1/1 counter on the cast. Tom swings the 2/2 Steamkin at Extra, then passes the turn to him. After Extra's draw step, Sweet Tooth gets a lore counter, and Extra makes a food token. He plays a forest for turn, he then casts Panharmonicon, followed by Peregrine Tooth. He then passes to Sam. Sam plays a Harried Spearguard, draining his opponents for 1 with Bontu. He follows it up with Lord Skitter's Butcher, draining his opponents again. Butcher's ETB triggers, and Sam chooses to sack the Spearguard, crying 2, and drawing a card, making 2 1/1 rats, 2 Totentanzes, and the Spearguard's own trigger. He plays a Swamp for turn. He plays a Rat Colony, draining his opponents a 3rd time. He moves to his end step, and John responds by adventuring his commander, milling 7 cards, and putting the 3 adventures among them into his hand. On his own turn, John plays a forest, followed by an Edgewall Innkeeper. He casts Beluna Grandsquall from exile, triggering Innkeeper and drawing a card. He adventures Virtue of Strength, drawing a card to Storyteller Pixie's trigger, returning Keeper of Fables from his graveyard to his hand. He then continues by playing Flaxen Intruder, drawing off Innkeeper. After all that, John also decides to swing the Pixie at Sam for good measure, then passes to Tom. Tom continues his Snow Mountain streak, then casts Solthim, Mayhem Dominus, putting another 1/1 counter on Steamkin. He passes it back to Extra. After Extra's draw step, Sweet Tooth's last trigger resolves, and he puts 2 1/1 counters on Bernard. He plays a Canopy Vista for turn. He plays a Dark Steel Splicer, making a whopping 6 3/3 Phyrexian Golems, as well as 2 foods. He then passes to Sam. Sam starts by casting Viscera Seer, draining his opponents for 1 with Bontu. He plays Drivnod, Carnage Dominus, draining his opponents for 1. He caps off his turn by sacking a rat to Goblin Bombardment in order to ping down the Edgewall Innkeeper. He then passes to John. John adventures his Beanstalk Giant, searching for an island and drawing a card off his Pixie. He plays a Cinderglade for turn, then moves it to Tom. Tom plays a Snow-Covered Mountain, then casts a Stormkill Artist, putting another 1/1 counter on Steamkin. He passes to Extra. Once Extra gets to his turn, he sacks his 3 food to Peregrine Toque, drawing a card. He casts Anointed Procession, making the table incredibly nervous. He goes to combat, choosing to focus Sam with all 6 of his golems. And Sam declares blocks on 3 of them with Viserys Ear, Rat Colony, and Lord Skitter's Butcher. Before damage, he sacks his blockers to Goblin Bombardment, making 6 1/1 rats with Totentanz thanks to Drivnod, and pinging Brenard 3 times. Sam sacks an additional 2 rats to Goblin Bombardment to kill Bernard, then takes 9 from the unblocked golems. Extra then passes to Sam. Sam begins by sacking a rat to Deadly Disputes, drawing 2 and making a treasure. He plays a Swarm Yard for turn. He continues with a Red Cap Gutter Dweller, making 2 rats and draining his opponents for 1 with Bond 2. He attacks Tom with Drivnod, and in response, John adventures his Horned Lock Whale, targeting Drivnod and drawing with his Pixie. The adventure resolves, and Sam puts Drivnod on the top of his library. He then passes the turn to John. John plays a Forest for turn, then casts the enchantment part of Virtue of Strength, tripling his mana production. He casts Lozan, Dragon's Legacy, followed by Beanstalk Worm. Lozan triggers on the worm's casts. It doesn't actually, it only triggers on adventure part, but let's ignore this. And John illegally targets Stormkill Artist. In response, Tom removes 3 1/1 counters from Steamkin to add 3 red mana. He casts Unexpected Windfall, putting a counter trigger for Steamkin and a treasure token trigger from Stormkill onto the stack. Before the triggers resolve though, Sam responds by sacking a rat to Bombardment and pings the Steamkin before he can get the counter. The rest of the stack then resolves, Tom makes 3 treasures and draws 2, while Stormkill Artist dies to human error. John then goes to combat, attacking Extra with Beluna and the Pixie. He passes to Tom. Tom plays a Snow-Covered Mountain, he casts a Fire Servant, and passes. And on his end step, Extra destroys Virtue of Strength with Beast Within, and John makes a 3/3 Beast as Consolation. The turn then moves to Extra. Extra plays a Plains, then recasts Bernard. In response, Sam sacks a rat and Bombardment to kill Darksteel Splicer. Extra then swings all 6 of his golems at John, who blocks 1 with his worm and another with his beast and flacks an intruder. In his second main, John casts Lost Heal, Clockwork Scholar, before passing to Sam. Sam then draws a card, plays a swamp, and proceeds to recast the Black Dominus, draining his opponents with Bond 2. He goes to combat, Red Cap Gutter Dweller triggers, and Sam sacks a rat to put a 1/1 counter on Red Cap, attacking Tom with 3 of his rats. In his second main phase, he casts Mahadi, Emporium Master, draining his opponents with Bond 2. On end of turn, Mahadi triggers and makes a treasure. Sam then passes to John. John plays a mountain, then casts Galvanic Giant, triggering Lozan, but only in his mind, since he still can't read his cards. He sends the imaginary trigger at Red Cap, and Sam responds by sacking it with Goblin Bombardment, targeting Lozan and making 2 rats with Totentanz. He then sacks another rat to Bombardment, killing Lozan. Dismayed, John then casts Beanstalk Giant, triggering Galvanic Giant to freeze the Golem token. John then attacks Extra with his Pixie, then passes. Tom just plays a Snow-Covered Mountain and passes to Extra. Extra plays a Command Tower and immediately moves to combat. He attacks John with his 4 remaining golems, and John blocks 1 with Beanstalk, 1 with Beluna, and 1 with Galvanic Giant. Extra then has nothing else and passes to Sam. Sam plays an Ogre Slumlord, draining his opponents. He plays a Twisted Sewer Witch, draining again, killing John in the process. Sewer Witch's ETB then triggers, and Sam responds to it by sacking the witch herself, Mahadi, and Totentanz, making 12 rats in total, with both Totentanz and Slumlord's triggers, and sending 2 hits of bombardment damage at extra and 1 at Tom. The Sewer Witch trigger then resolves, putting a Wicked Roll on each of Sam's rats. Sam then attacks Tom with 4 rats and Drivnod, to which Tom responds with Electro Dominance where X equals 9. Sam responds by sacking 4 rats to target Sulfin, and Tom and Extra both lose 4 life to the Wicked Rolls hitting the yard. Sam sacks an additional 3 rats to Bombardment to try to kill the Fire Servant, with Tom and Extra losing 3 life, and Electro Dominance resolves, dealing 9 to Sam and letting Tom cast Seismic Strike, dealing 8 damage to Extra's Golem and 8 to Sam and Extra thanks to Imodane's trigger. Tom then blocks Drivnod with Imodane, and Sam finishes Tom and Extra by sacking the rest of his creatures to Bombardment with some help from the remaining Wicked Rolls, snatching a convincing victory.